it's not just about the training, it's about getting athletes to wrap their mind around the things that they can do, not to obsess about what they believe that they can't.
You there, buddy?
Welcome to the Crushing Iron Podcast. We cover all things triathlon, triathlon life, triathloning in general, triathlon training session, triathlon races. We cover it all. We cover it right now. Let's get right into things. The breaking news of the week: a new race, Memphis 70.3. Ironman has just announced in the City of Blues, Memphis, Tennessee. Are you excited, Mike?
I am so excited. Yeah, let's talk about that triathlon. What are they going to do? Something new over there? Like a new distance?
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, welcome to our standard Crushing Iron Podcast, episode 322.
323?
I'm a little behind. My apologies. Back in the conference room. I got to start bringing it in here. But yeah, 323. If it's your first time listening, hey, listen. We appreciate you. We appreciate you giving us the opportunity. If it's your dive in, we have 322 other podcasts that we've recorded you can go back into. We come to you twice a week. And again, I think we should probably give a little preface, as we don't always. This is conversational format. It is not scripted. It is more of a conscious thought stream between Mike and I. We are both coaches and athletes. We've been best friends for 6 or 7 years, and I coached Mike to his very first Ironman back in 2013, Ironman Wisconsin. And we've been doing this podcast for 3 years. We come to you twice a week, usually Monday and Thursday, sometimes other days of the week, as probably will be next week with the Thanksgiving holiday. But that's what we do. We don't cover all things triathlon 24/7. We cover how our hobby, which is triathlon, and we hope to keep it that way in terms of balancing our passion and our motivation, our commitment for trying to excel in something like this very frustrating endurance sport can be in triathlon, and then hopefully help you navigate it and how it best interacts with your life, balance it, and then give our thoughts and feedback that we give each other, share our experiences that we've gone through, and hopefully it benefits you for the best.
Yeah, man. Have I ever thanked you for getting me through that first Ironman? I think I did. But thanks again that you brought it.
Hey, I was just going to say, no, I've actually had a lot of you never truly thanked me. Like, you gave me a hug at the end, and we shared a special moment, but you never looked me in the eyes. You're like, Robbie, Bruce, I really appreciate what you're doing for me, man. This has been great. I appreciate what you did for me. But you know what? Now that we've squashed that, we can get on to the rest of the podcast.
Yeah, for sure, man. 323 podcasts, almost 1 million downloads. I mean, everybody can't be wrong, right? There must be something in here worth something.
I mean, let's be honest. We have a lot of solid podcasts. We try to hover around the median. We probably don't have any spectacular ones. We probably have a few, flops, but hey, that's what we do. And I was thinking about this yesterday as you and I were discussing other things off the air, and I was like, it's kind of interesting, like in the world that we live in now, like to be where people are like generally afraid to be vulnerable and like are really conscious about what they say or how they frame like their life to everyone else as like whether it's reality or not. And you know what? We definitely make mistakes sometimes. We definitely probably say some things that aren't, people's favorite things, but the truth is we get on the air for about an hour twice a week and just have a conversation of our, like I said, just like our conscious stream of like thoughts with no editing. We've never gone back and edited a podcast or taken things out, so it's what we do. We enjoy it, we love it, and we've over the years we've grown ourselves, and I think we've refined how we approach the podcast and the topics that we discuss, but we'll always stay true to who we are. We'll always do this. As we started, we started out doing it for us, doing it for ourselves, to benefit you and I, and just connecting, and then it turned into something greater than that. But we'll continue to kind of keep things at the core of why we started to do this, and that was just hopefully allowing other people to connect, sharing our experiences, both the good, the bad, the ugly, and then do our very, very best through those conversations to help you, the athlete, and the person, the human. I think that's something that we all forget about, is if you're tuning in for athletic reasons or how to get better triathlon or how to figure this out or how to prepare for this race. But the person that's also listening inherently is human. And that's something that we always try to kind of navigate towards and remind both of ourselves and hopefully our listeners that, there's this thing called life. That's frequently that seems impossible to navigate with so many things that are happening in the world and within our own personal lives. That if we can help even just a couple people out of the whatever couple thousands that listen to this podcast, if we can just help one or two each time we record, each time someone downloads, navigate a specific area of their life in a positive way, then I think you'd agree that like you and I both feel like we've done our work for the day.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember reading. There was a thing about I still write a lot, but I was really into writing for a while. And one of my favorite books on writing well, I think it's called William Zinsler. He wrote. He was an NYC professor, taught writing and all this. And one of the biggest things he always said is you have to write for yourself. And I think that these podcasts kind of were born out of that, doing like you're saying. We wanted to do it to kind of, do something that was kind of scary, but it was for ourselves ultimately. And if you can be true to yourself, that's when you're going to be the most impact, or have the most impact maybe on others. So, I mean, it's like you can't, and I think there's a metaphor there for triathlon too. You have to do the sport for yourself. You can't be doing it for others because, or listening, it has to be your journey, your path, and you have to be true to that. And I think that ultimately that is the best way for all things to get done, because then they'll have, you've talked about it in treatment where you had to do that for yourself, because in order to be the best you, that's what had to happen. And then you become more impactful in other people's lives and things like that. So
yeah, well said.
Thank you.
Well said.
I really love that about the writing, because I think so many people tend to, whether it's writing or podcasts, it's like, okay, I need to go in here and do something that I know other people are going to get into.
Yep. Yeah, force it. We've struggled with that with the podcast, and then with writing, like for the blog. Like, we're really going to put something on the blog. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to force feed something, and after like 3 sentences, I'm like, this is terrible.
Yeah.
And I'll just go totally like give up on it, and then 3 or 4 days later, I'll actually sit down, organically and just start going through like what my natural thoughts are with no intention of where that's going to go. And then, out comes, a halfway decent, often mediocre blog post. So, we are imperfect podcasters, but we do the best we can. We are always honest. We always tell you what we think, whether you agree with it or not. And I'm not going to apologize for that. Topics for today, I kind of had like a new one. I guess it's not really a new topic, but I thought
it's a new segment.
It could be. It could be a new segment. I mean,
I always think about segments.
Yeah, because it could be the new segment of the podcast. This is I was going through Training Peaks on I think Monday or Tuesday, and I rattled off a couple pretty solid, I think, 1 or 2 liners that I thought aren't specific to just the athlete, but that are probably things that we could use as kind of like springboards for the conversation in terms of what I think a lot of athletes go through. And I'll quote the 2 of them, and then before we do that, I want to just mention the new race, Memphis 70.3, but is one was I commented on a gentleman's Training Peaks post or a Training Peaks workout, and I said, stop trying to dig holes and start planting seeds. And we'll go into that. Obviously, I think that one's pretty obvious in terms of a lot of athletes will try and dig themselves into these, almost unescapable holes in training by going too hard too often, or especially this time of year when, like, I think half the people probably listen to this podcast probably either have some chest congestion or the sniffles, and are like battling that early season. Oh my gosh, it got cold. Am I sick? Am I not sick? Is it just like cold, symptoms, or do I have a virus, or are you coughing up, mucus, whatever it is, or the quote unquote flu-like symptoms, which is basically like you either got the flu or you don't. And then they're trying to like skip sessions or keep going. So we'll talk about that. I think it's a great one, especially for this time of year and in general. And the other one, which I think is always important, and this is one of the sides of coaching that I really, really like. Let me be honest, man. Like, I think from a specific training, the science behind it, I think I'm okay. I'm pretty good. I still have a lot to learn. I'm still working hard at fine tuning all the information that's out there and do it to the best of my ability for each athlete. But what I feel like I am really good at is getting athletes to be consistent and buying in and, falling in love with the work and then doing it. But then the other big one is, this is a quote or a comment I made to another athlete, was you have to take care of the human in you before the athlete. Ignore yourself at your athlete's peril. And so many times I feel like when athletes make decisions, and listen, we're all guilty of that. I am 100% guilty of this too as well. Like, in personal life, when it comes to boundaries with coaching and work and stuff, it's like it comes back to self-care. And I think so many times, like when we make decisions based on our identity as an athlete, and we are totally neglecting at the core of who we are, which is just a human being, a mother, a father, a son, a spouse, a coworker, a cousin, a friend. Like, we will oftentimes just totally ignore that person for this athlete that drives so many of our thoughts and our feelings and our motivations to do these things that, for the most part, like Monday through Friday, like might take up like an hour and a half of your day. And you're focusing on that, and you're basically just putting the rest of who you are, the other 21, 22 and a half hours of the day, like on the back burner and neglecting it. And I think that oftentimes we all need to be reminded that if you don't take care of yourself and who you are and your emotional needs, your mental needs, and even your physical needs that are outside of triathlon, like other hobbies you might have, that if you neglect those for so long, they're going to wither away, and they will start to not only negatively impact your life as a person, as a human, but they're also going to significantly impact your athletic endeavors, whether they're just in triathlon, whether they're in running events, cycling and swimming events. Like, you see people that are incredibly happy perform well. You rarely ever see somebody who is just feels like they have a crappy life and they're not smiling. Things go like, you never see them perform well. And I just think it's a great topic in general in terms of self-care, and I think an area that people tend to kind of dial in on this time of year for whatever reasons, whether it's New Year's resolutions, whether it's understanding that with the time, the time differences in terms of there being more darkness and not enough light, people can kind of get down in the dumps a little bit quicker, and depression is a real topic, seasonal depression, and then you combine that with lack of training. Like, there's a ton of recipes for not having, not having a good life. And I just think it's an important topic, and so I think those two are kind of starting out points I want to discuss. And as you and I both know, if we start on one, then we're for sure going to get through one. The other one, the other one may or may not happen. So honestly, I'll talk about Memphis 70.3 at the end of this podcast, because it's honestly, the announcement is an announcement. I think these other two things and these topics and these subjects will matter most and influence somebody more than announcement they've already heard. So, but like between those two topics, those two headlines, like, is there one of those you want to start with, or that struck out to you personally, or as you've seen with athletes, or something you've gone through yourself?
Man, let's start with the dig holes and start planting seeds one, because you brought it up briefly, but it is this time of year. I get a lot of that as I'm reading through Training Peaks too, and I just keep saying, look, if you can just get out there and do something easy every day, you are winning right now, because this is such an easy time of the year to fall behind and then think you got to really make up a lot of lost time, and then you're out for another 4 days or whatever. It's just like, do something simple, keep it simple. I was listening to this guy talk the other day about simplicity and how many things in our daily lives can confuse us, or mentally I'm talking about. So, and he was talking about how the brain burns calories, and like every time you reach a dilemma or a confusing situation, your brain is burning extra calories. And we were kind of talking about something like how athletes go through workouts and they try to nail things, but they're kind of confused by it, and they're always worried about like hitting certain zones and hitting certain effort levels and blah 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 on down the line. And I couldn't help but think like how much energy that must be burning in the brain if you're never really loose and free to actually just be working out. And I actually watched an interview last night too with, I don't know if you've seen this on Rich Roll, with Dean Karnazes, that ultra runner.
I have not.
No. But he was kind of talking about, because he's never been injured, the things he does are pretty insane. And he was talking about how he stays injury free. And he said a large part of it, he thinks, is because he keeps positive people around him. I thought that was really interesting. It's like, he does other things like cross trains and things like that he was talking about. But he doesn't have overwhelming, like, stress or, things like that going on in his life.
He doesn't have any drama.
Yeah, no drama.
And
he doesn't tolerate drama. And he just says he's always around good people, and that lifts you up. It's like kind of in a race when people are positive and cheering for you. It's the same type of thing, but it just goes into life.
I love, like, two of those things that you said, like, totally struck with me, and that's something that we talk about a lot in terms of athletes. Like, even like you said, like, your brain and the energy and stuff, like, it burns calories, right? Mm-hmm. So I can't, like, if you're out there, you are out there because you're listening. Good stress is still stress. Like, I know we say that a lot, and it's kind of hard to wrap your mind around, but, like, even just being in a new relationship, the amount of, like, stress and energy and change, it almost is, like, equal to when a person goes through a breakup. It's just a different kind of energy. It's different change, it's different stress, it's different emotions, but they all still take, like you would say, burning calories, but they all take up a certain amount of energy. And listen, guys, like, we wake up every day with a limited amount of time and energy. You don't get to create more time. You don't get to allow, like, we try to allow ourselves more energy by the things we eat, the things we drink, by the coffee in my hand. Like, you might do those things that help stimulate it, but the fact of the matter is that you still only have a limited amount each day. And when you add in things of life like relationships and even, like you said, like, big decisions. Like, I know athletes that are, like, weighing, like, massive decisions in their life, like whether to move. They're waiting on test results from a doctor. They're waiting to hear back on something about a loved one. Like, you aren't physically doing anything, but it will exhaust you. And if you go into workouts looking at yourself as just the athlete and totally and continuously disrespecting the human, you're going to burn out on both ends, and then you're going to be left with nothing. And you're going to have dug yourself such a gigantic mental and emotional hole that the bottom is going to be severe. And so even like new jobs, like the amount, so like you've been in the same job for like 5 or 6 years, you know how to do it. It's like waking up, it's like riding a bike. You're like, you know how to do it all the time. And then you change and you go into a new job. It might even be like a better schedule, a better workplace environment, better pay. But you know what you have to do now? You don't know where everything is. You don't know where your desk is. You don't know the form. It's all brand new people. You have to learn different things. Guess what? That's going to be harder on you as a person to figure all that out, and you're going to use more brain power and wavelength than you're normally accustomed to. But again, like, oh, well, things just get better. I can totally change, my life, and things are going to be so much easier, and I'll be able to work out more. And you're like, yeah, you might, but not right now. Like, you need to give yourself time and not to forget that. Like, again, like we've even, like, the simplicity thing is like we no longer take everything now is go big or go home and do it in as short amount of time as possible.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. It's like we have to go to extreme in length or in magnitude, and also the extreme in minimizing the amount of time we have to reach this enormous thing that we're trying to accomplish. Because if we do it quicker and we do it, then it means it's better. And that's never the case. I can't name very few things that the quicker you get it done, the better it's going to be in life, in everything. And long gone are the days where most people are like, you know what? Short, focused anything, patience, committing to a process to yield long-term results. That is what people like. That is what yields the biggest long-term result. And to be honest with you, probably accumulates the least amount of stress. to do something that you really want to do. So like we've taken that to like the total. I was thinking about this on my run today about just like how extreme everything has to be now, and then you have to not only do it extreme, but you have to do it in a very short amount of time, and how much stress that causes. And I think not only is the amount of time that you're doing it in obviously causing too much stress on your body, but also the mental and emotional investment you have to go totally on and basically give up everything else and try to figure out how to do it shorter than everybody else. It just takes away and it sucks the life out of it. And so when I go back to like the plant seeds and don't dig holes, is that like you don't have to go very deep to plant a seed. But every time you dig the appropriate depth and you plant a seed and you do the appropriate work and you don't dig a huge hole that you can't get out of, then you cover it up and you wait weeks and months to harvest it. And something grows and it's beneficial and it's good and it is something that's positive, that's going to give you a return. It's not something that's going to make you shift and change how you plant the next day. Because if you go in and you planted 2 rows of seeds, and you go in one day and your ego gets the best of you, or you're trying to compete against somebody who you shouldn't be competing against, whether it's virtually online or whether it's at a group run, and you go and dig this massive hole, it's going to disrupt everything. It's going to disrupt every single row you just planted. It's going to distribute dirt. It's going to push things away. It might shift the way things. And then guess what? Now you basically have to start back over, because you're going to have to take time to refill this hole, smooth it out, and then you're going to have to take a step back and work backwards to make sure that the seeds you just planted are still in line, still the depth they wanted to, still getting the water, the nutrients, and the sunlight, whatever it is they need to be able to produce things that you originally set out to do for them down the road. And we just don't, because we just get, and listen, I'm not telling you this because I've never done it, because I do it probably every like 2 months, like at least. Like you dig yourself a hole. It's what humans do, because we get so ahead of things that by the time we recognize it, it's just like it's too late. But I'm telling you this because like when you think about training sessions, you think about accumulating links in the chain or building blocks or building a house. Like there are no shortcuts, there are no cheaper ways out to get you one place or the other. It's like, again, like ignore going back to like the second quote we'll talk about, it's like ignore your human self. And again, like understand that when you go to plant a seed or you go to try and dig a hole, that they're all going to be at different depths, because you might not have the energy to plant even on a day. You might need to take the day off. And I just think it's, again, like I understand personally that it's very difficult to wrap your mind around into. And I think it's interesting with just the psyche of humans and people these days, in that we have become so accustomed to ignoring our own self and establishing like a self-care routine and things that we do that will nurture ourselves. We are like obsessed with giving, and not giving like as in going out and doing something service oriented. We basically wake up and we throw ourselves into the world at the mercy of it. And we put ourselves in the defense, like our own needs and our own wants and our own desires and our own self-care. Like, we'll stay up late so we can do this, or I got to answer this email, or I got to answer this text, or I got to answer this Facebook message. And like the world is grabbing at you 24/7. Mm-hmm. And all we want to do is go after it, instead of being like, you know what? I think like yesterday I went, and I'm gonna shut up in a second. Sorry. I went.
You're fine, dude.
I know, dude. Like I was ripping on coffee, and here I am, like just a micro machining it out.
You've only got a limited amount of energy left, dude.
That's true. And I'm about to gas out, so you can bring it home in negatives. Put the podcast. But so I went for out for a trail run yesterday. I woke up and I left the house and I went my normal way to go park at that trail you and I ran when you were in town last. And I went to go through the park, and it was closed. The gate was closed. So I had to go back, turn around, go the other way, all the way back around the ridge I was about to run, and then pulled up the street, and then the road was blocked. So I had to go backtrack again and go around on Market Street. I finally got back, got out of the car. It's a beautiful fall morning here in Chattanooga yesterday, as it is today, like 50-something degrees. The trees are I was like, man, this is going to be incredible. And then I was like, all right, I went to go hit start on my watch. No watch. And I just started laughing. I was like, I mean, this is it. But I was like, and I had a choice. And I remember that comment I made to this athlete about and we'll go with this in a minute, about taking care of yourself. And I was like, I have two choices. I can go back home and get my watch and come back here and take care of the athlete, the driven person that wants it to be recorded, that wants to know what I did, that just yearns for information to give me something. Or I can free myself and just go run and not have to look at my watch, and stop when I want to stop and enjoy nature, and stop when I want to stop and enjoy, the views, and walk when I want to walk, and not care about any of it, and just decompress and live and run. And that's what I chose. And it was interesting because it was a very different type of run. It was so incredibly nice. Like, no, let me get this straight. I'm not like going to commit to this like 24/7. But I was saying in this instance, it was so refreshing. And I know I still ran. I got some out, but it was more of a moment of, you know what? I just need to take care of myself, and the athlete might come along with me. But as a person who needs to get out and be grateful and show gratitude and take. Because again, like Steve Magnus talked about this in one of our very first guest interview podcasts, he was like, when you race with gratitude, you perform better. It's proven. They've been numerous studies on, like, if you train or if you race the gratitude, you do better. If you race for someone else in mind, like you take what you're doing out of your own self and being selfish, and you become selfless. And I think we forget that when we can train and when we do things for ourselves physically and athletically through these endurance type training or endeavors with races, that we can use this as self-care if we are able to take it out of ourselves and a preconceived expectation or result, and just live and breathe and be just thankful. And it was that's where I am,
man. But that's like how far did you run, man?
I have no idea.
That's the question. How far did you run today? I don't know.
It,
but think about it. Like what you're saying is that gratitude for others, or taking that out of yourself. But if you want to break that down, because what you said about start taking care of the human before the athlete, right? So what if there's I feel like that's almost like two people inside us in a way, So it's like, can we have gratitude for the human more often? And I think ultimately that's what it's about anyway, right? It's just like we get trapped into these athletic feats that are digestible, that can be posted online or whatever the case may be, and you sort of like backdoor like benefit or like kind of rank yourself against the world with these numbers or whatever the case may be. But like, how can we have more gratitude for that human inside of us that just wants to feel better? And that's probably why we got in the sport in the first place. Then all of a sudden it gets kind of twisted. It's like, man, I love to write, but now I have to write bestsellers. It's like, Jesus, man, who put that kind of burden on, life? It's like all these like
society,
benchmarks.
It's the expectation of we.
But it's hard, man, because you can't like changing anything is super hard. Like I always laugh when I'm like, I'm going to be an early morning riser or whatever it is. And I get up one day and I'm like, I can do this. And I expect it like to be easy the next day too or whatever. Because some days it is easy, but most times it's not. And then I reflect, I'm like, dude, you spent, 50 years not doing this. And you expect to be fixed in a week. It's like like we were talking about that. I was talking about that brain surgeon, how you have to recreate, thought pattern tracks in your brain, or like, performance things. And that's kind of what he was saying too, is like when you have a one habit going, or like instincts that are natural for you, to change those takes a ton of energy to do. And that's really what's going on, is it's like you can't, it's like you have to think about every step you take. Like if you fly all the time, you're just kind of bored and do your thing. But like whenever I fly, which is very infrequent, I got to be like, wait, do I have the right thing? Do I need to have this on my phone? Like that kind of stuff just stresses me out big time. But it's like, what are you used to? What seems natural for you? That's why I always suggest that, athletes just kind of like, instead of like getting so caught up in like blasting intervals and things of that nature, just get your body familiar with the motions and get them into shape, and then get it so it's subconscious, so you're not even thinking about things. and then you can creep it up naturally.
Well, I think I think humans are wired to always search for, or to be attracted to, or to always kind of give in to the path of least resistance. I mean, it's listen, it's totally normal. Like, we do it while we're driving cars on the way to work, like when we're trying to figure out how to get places or how to multitask. And I don't want to carry just one grocery in at a time. I want to take 17. It's like the path of least resistance. Let's get it all done. Like, that's just how we're wired, I think, to an extent. And I think, I see this in swimming all the time. Like, when I do a swim analysis, and an athlete will be doing their early vertical form, they'll be getting ready to push back, and they collapse their armpits, and they kind of bring their hands in towards their body, because they just don't have the swim-specific strength, or because they've been taught to drag your thumb thing up the side of your body and tickle yourself and then bring your elbow out. They do that, but most of the time it's because they don't have the strength to keep pushing back. And if you push back, it's hard. And so what your mind, I think, tells your body is or vice versa, is, well, if we bring our arms in, we're no longer pushing water, therefore we're actually not doing any work, so it's easier, and easier is better. But the truth of it is that it's not better. It's easier and you're slower versus finishing far back and continuing to push water and have that feel. But it hurting, not hurting, but you feeling that pressure and maybe fatiguing earlier isn't a bad sign. It just shows you're doing more work. But so again, we don't need to be hard on ourselves and think, oh my gosh, I'm just lazy. I think we have to think through why we are thinking through specific training sessions or methods or programs and think, all right, am I really trying to find the path of least resistance here? Am I trying to figure the easy way out, or am I just going back on something I know from before? And again, as a coach, that's one of the hardest things to get an athlete to understand or kind of wrap their mind around, is that, hey man, this takes time. I'm not going to tell you in 12 weeks you're going to be running this or biking this, because it'd be a complete lie and I would just be guessing. And the truth is I just don't know. But what I do know is if we do, this, and this, then you're going to be significantly more prepared. You're going to become more consistent. You're going to create the engine that we want. And then down the road, we're going to be able to compete and be your best self, whatever that looks like, because we don't know. And that is hard for people to map their mind around, because everyone wants to quantify and put on paper everything. Everything has to be quantified these days. You have to tell me how this was. No, I don't. You tell me how it was. You tell me if the run felt good before you look at your watch, and then change your mind twice after looking at it. It was a terrible one. Even though I felt great and it was spring and I was happy, this run was terrible. It's that's not how it works. And that's how you start to rob yourself, and you cheat the athlete that you are, and then you totally rob the human that you are 22 hours a day. And it's an unhealthy balance, and it's an unhealthy relationship to have when you try to maximize one in a way that's not good, and then you totally neglect the other. You're a human, you're a spouse, you're a husband, father, what I said at the beginning, you were all those first all the time. Your kids, your friends, your spouse, your coworkers, your cousins, whatever, they don't even care. They just pretend to care about what you do when you run around your spandex with your pointy helmet and run around. They don't even they don't know. They pretend like they know, but what they do is they walk away from you, they drive their car, they go, man, can you believe she did that 5K and then swam afterwards? That's crazy. And they don't even know. They just make stuff up to we all do. Oh yeah, it sounds great, man. That's awesome. I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't even care.
Yeah.
But we do. And so I just think it's important to remember that when you're going to plant these seeds and you're trying not to dig holes, you can't, going back to that, you can't make up for things. You just can't. And I guess the best way to put it in terms of planting seeds and cultivating and harvesting later is you can't plant two seeds in one hole. They'll choke each other out. I don't even know if that's true or not.
I was going to say, dude, he's man, this horticulture lesson.
I know. Listen, man, I've been really getting into it, man. But, to an extent, you can't plant things too close to each other because the roots will wrap around each other and they'll end up dying. And that's what happens when people will skip a day because they have a day off, and the next day they're oh, well, I've got to plant 2 seeds today because I only planted one. I didn't plant any yesterday. And they planted 2 seeds and they both wither and die and don't grow because you didn't have anything to give, and then you find yourself again taking another day off and planting no seeds the next day. You just can't chase things like that. You can't keep digging holes. You got to be patient. You got to go barely in, plant a seed, get up, and move on. But the hardest thing to do is wake up the next day and come back and see nothing. Because if you planted a seed, you should barely even be able to see that you planted it. Because you didn't go very deep. It was very small. You did it and it was over with. But if you go out and you dig a big hole, guess what the next day? Oh, you can see it, baby. Look at this big hole I dug. You can still see the amount where I had to cover it up with dirt, and it's not flat anymore. I disrupted all the soil around it, and it kind of looks uneven. Like, see? Did it. This is what I did yesterday, man. Like, that's why it's also so difficult. Is very, very unseen. Like, it's all about very, very, very small gains, incremental gains each day that add up and add up and add up and add up and add up to something very, very good. But people have a very hard time figuring that out and being patient with it.
They're hard to see. That's why I think it makes it so difficult. The small gains, like when we've talked about before, I mean, if you had like a graph and you could look back to 2 years ago at the exact same workout, on a flip of a switch, and say, oh, man, look how far I've come. But you forget it because it's a gradual. And that's, of course, the whole point. But it does make it more difficult sometimes. Like we talked about, like building a house or something. It's like you can do all the wiring behind the walls and it doesn't look like you're doing anything. But like once you start painting, you can visually see that you're making progress. But I think a lot of times training is more like wiring the walls. You can't, it's the most important stuff going on, but it's hard to really see progress there, and unless you're really engaged in that process and what happened, it's people like don't even notice it. And I was talking, like, speaking of one of the training peaks I had actually this morning was one of the guys, a really great guy. He's working hard, and he's the last 2 swims he's posted something about he has trouble with single arm drills on his left hand side, and I was like, dude, don't worry about it. It's like, you're left, you're probably strong right-handed or whatever. And I said it applies to, for me, like when I think about stuff like that, I think about it in running and cycling too. I have a dominant side. So to try to get my left side up to par with my right all the time is a long journey. And I don't know if it's something that'll ever quite happen, but I think it's so important because of balance and things like that. But I'm just like, man, just try thinking about leading with your left hand more often or something like that. I think those are the little seeds that's a microcosm within a workout, how you can plant seeds for me. Or like when I'm running, when you're out running, just start counting strides or whatever and count with number 1 on your left. It's a weird little distinction, but you'll notice how different it feels when you're counting strides, and naturally I think you'll start with your strong leg or your strong arm or whatever, but to try to think about it in terms of like that and just not think about it, you know what I mean? Because that's like
that's the hardest thing though, like especially for type A athletes. Like there's a phrase I use with a few of my athletes, and it's be aware, let's address, don't obsess. And that is like impossible for some people to be aware of something and then feel like we can address it, but then to not obsess over this one thing. Like you could, like this athlete, like you could struggle at one arm drills and then hop out and blast off like your best swimmer or whatever. But what are you going to remember? The thing you did poorly. Because again, like we love to maximize and make known all the things that we do that are great, but then but in the public eye, but when we retreat back to the locker room and we drive home from the pool or get back to our house after a run or a ride, like we are our worst critic, and we beat ourselves up over one small thing or a skipped interval. I'm like, dude, who cares? You did 115 minutes of a 120-minute workout, and guess what? You did an hour and 15 minutes longer than most people got up and did today. Let's take the win when we got to win. It's like it's beating a team that the spread was 30 points and you only beat them by 6. God, we should have beat them. We should have beat them by more than that.
I know, man.
Dude, a win is a win. Like, you never know who you're going to be each day. Do the best you can. Wake up and leave the rest. But again, like that's what people will obsess about the things that they missed instead of being appreciative and thankful and then maximizing what they did. And that again, it's like we talked about on Monday in the How to Not Suck at Cycling podcast part 3, and we talked about body shots, right? Like we talked about the core horses that are courses that are really hilly or have a lot of pinchers, like they're giving you body shots, man. Like, dude, listen, every 70.3 in Ironman, no matter what course is, gives you body shots from the time they get in the water. I mean, you might get a kick to the goggles and the nose like the first 2 seconds you're in the swim. It's all body shots. But when you minimize your success and maximize your hiccups, or not even your failures, but just like the things you feel like you didn't do well, when you maximize those and minimize the other, imagine yourself like giving your own self body shots. They add up after such a long time. And if you continue, listen, I can't tell you how many athletes I've started to work with who come in and they have either been beaten down by the coach they worked with in the past to basically have no confidence, or they have been coached or self-coached, and they have woke up every single day and been given their own self body shots. So they finally just crippled over, walked bent over, and they were like, I got nothing left. Like to rebuild that athlete, it's nothing to do with training. It's strictly mental and emotional and psychological. To get people to like rethink and to rewire the way that they've and what they've done to themselves. Like, you know what, that's not you. Like I made a comment this morning to an athlete that I work with who came to me that was in that kind of category, and this athlete was just absolutely just like, when I say crushing, this athlete was like dominating this very difficult workout that I gave this individual. And about halfway through, she just stopped and she said, I just didn't have it. I gave up. My mind got the best of me. I told myself I couldn't do it. And I was like you were absolutely dominating this. And I said, what I said was, you are trapped. Inside of you now is trapped 2 people: the athlete that you truly are, and the athlete you've always seen yourself as. And those need to have a conversation and come together, and you need to bring that other one forward, because that is preventing you from moving forward the way that you can, because you're saying you can't. And so of course I was like, you know what, we're gonna do the same workout next week. Because like, it's not just about the training, it's about getting athletes to wrap their mind around the things that they can do, not to obsess about what they believe that they can't. Because there are so many things that we believe that we can't do, and then we do them, and we're like, I just didn't know I could do that. And it's not because it's because you've never tried, right? It's because we're afraid to try things we might not be good at. Because what if somebody sees it? Like, there are plenty of things that I am like 100% not good at, and if I try one of them and I succeed, I'm like, hey, I'm actually kind of like proud that I did this today. Like anything that has to do with like technology, if I can do it, I'm like anytime I log on Skype, I'm like, dude, I got it today. I'm on a roll.
You opened it.
I know I did. Like, I opened it. I'm like, score. But it's like we're also afraid to do these things that, and we just think about them. And so I just think it's really important for athletes to not forget to take time to nurture themselves and to figure out the things to do. And going back to the podcast you'll see on Rich Roll, it's going to be significantly harder for you to do that if you surround yourself with people who are just like that. Like, if you surround yourself with vacuums, or like one of my favorite books from John Gordon is called The Energy Bus, and he talks about energy vampires. It's a book that a lot of professional teams that have had really bad culture within the organization, they bring him in, and he talks about just all kind of. He has lots of different books on leadership and business, and he refers a lot of them as no energy vamp. He has no complaining is one, and then because you have those people too, like complainers love to sit around and hang out with other complainers, because you just get to sit there and complain about everything, and you never get anything done. You just complain, and then you feed off each other's complaints and just moaning and groaning about every little thing. That's just like a waste of time. And so he has one of those, but then he talks about these energy vampires, and that's the same thing with training. Like, if you surround yourself with people who are just so negative and so hard on themselves, and they critique and they beat each other up all the time, and then they feed into that and they have that same mentality, it sucks the life out of you already. Then you're not even giving yourself that much life because you're already hard on yourself. It's like you are good enough every day. It might not be to the level that you want it to be, or that you expected, or that you foresaw the previous day, but you're good enough every day. It's just getting to the point to where you can sit back and say and be comfortable with that. And I think that's a scary part for people, is because we love to have expectations because it gives us a metric to shoot for, and we almost rather have a metric to shoot for and fall short of, and rarely succeed at, than to not have one at all, because then, oh my God, how will we judge our day? And it's just like, that's how people get into these cycles of negative self-talk and depression, and seeing themselves in these lights that's not who you are. It's like there's a really close friend of mine now who's like has real bad anxiety, and they were like, that's not reality talking, that's the anxiety talking. And like, even just to recognize that is like a huge deal. Most people, I don't think, would have a hard time discerning between the both. But even saying it out loud, it's like you're giving more power back to yourself than you are giving energy to the anxiety. And I just think that when it comes to training and focusing on yourself and all these goals, and how we feel pressure to do all these things and be bigger and greater and faster and stronger and do everything quicker and more than we did last year, like, you just get lost. And it's like, and you forget that, at the core of it, like, that's, like, in the simplest form, what I always tell, especially parents, when they start, especially parents of kids or in any kind of athletic endeavor at all, and they start to be hard on themselves, and I tell them, I said, you need to start parenting you like you parent your kids, because you wouldn't ever judge or tell your kid to just suck it up and do it. You would always tell them to have fun. At least you should. And if that's what you say to your kid, then that's, that's a title from another podcast. But you should. Did you have fun, and did you try hard? If you can say both of those things, then today was a success. And we love to judge ourselves, and we love to put ourselves out there and feel like we're the rest of the world just judging us, when, like, the truth is, like, you're the only person that knows. Did you have fun? Did you give the effort? Because a lot of people fake having fun. And I just think it's important to take care of yourself, because you can still work hard and have fun and be a good spouse or coworker or friend, or just, how about this? You can still be a really good person to yourself and be a good athlete. It's just important to remember who comes first. And we oftentimes put the athlete first and forget about ourselves.
Mm. Yeah, man. When you're talking about energy vampires, that's really a huge point, I think. I mean, you think about teams that are successful over time, and I think that, like, the Patriots, for example, we talked about them so many times, but
I know.
I think they are the ones, it's like, it seems like they are the ones always plucking potentially energy vampires out of thin air and bringing them into their system, and then the culture or the history or the makeup of the team seems to override that, and you look at why certain teams in history are seemingly like always good, the Alabamas or whatever like that. It's the culture. They don't put up with that, I don't think, and they don't let energy vampires take over the thing. I remember, like, my high school, I think, was full of energy vampires. When I was growing up, it was just sort of like everybody was always bitching. It was always about me. There was always something going on. It was never about the team. And, we overcame a lot of that in some areas because there's a lot of really good talent and things like that. But in general, I think it was why we had a lot of really good talent in our school, and none of them really would get looked at by colleges. And I think there was something to do with the system that was in place a lot of the time, and because you just don't want, it's like, sometimes it's so much better to have a bunch of people working together. Well, it's always better to have a bunch of people working together than some, like, super talented people that are always at odds,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's in a way what we're trying to say with ourselves. Let's, like, let's bring the people together in ourselves, the different thought patterns and things like that, and just start working together towards something that really matters and doesn't take extra energy needlessly.
Yeah, or know like exactly where your energy needs to go. Because I mean, like, yeah, coaching is about working with athletes to get the best out of themselves down the road at this event that they've picked to compete in. But one of the biggest like responsibilities of a coach is also to manage personnel. Like you see this in professional sports all the time. Like coaches who can really manage like diverse personalities and adapt to that, then that's how they breed successful teams. Like, yeah, you can drive in like you have to do it this way, you have to do it this way. But if you like to an extent, you don't want to change people. You know, like at the core, like you want to, but you have to like help balance and navigate through their different personalities of the good and the bad and the ugly, and then maximize the ones that's good and hopefully limit the times that are bad, and then also just really do your job to just increase the good and then decrease the bad. You're never going to really change everyone, because even like Bill Belichick, he brings in Albert Hainsworth and Antonio Brown. You're like, yeah, good luck with that. But so you have to navigate personality just as much as you have to do the possibility to perform. And it's difficult to navigate. And as all things in our podcast, it ain't easy. It's just.
But we have a good community around that too, and I think that's a big piece of this puzzle. There's a lot of people that are super supportive and positive, and you always hear it's like these people get out. I didn't think I could do that. And of course you can.
It is without
get out
question.
of your own way, and other people can help you with that.
100%. It is without question the most valuable asset of our team and coaching is our community, and the personality and the vibe and the culture that they've created to have a good perspective and try hard and do the best they can, and then if the results happen, they do. But the most important things is, are you working hard, are you having fun, are you supporting everyone around you, and rising tide lifts all boats, whatever that is. A sea and tide and boats and armadas and everything. Like it's just it's the influence, and you can have positive influences that affect you, and more than just the ways that you sign up for, that you look for in a run or a ride or a swim. It's it can positively affect who you are at the core, and that's triathlon. That's how it should be, and that's what you should be aiming for, even as a self-coached athlete or person getting into the sport. Is how can I become better, not how much faster can I race. And if you should always ask yourself that question when you go out for a training session. Is don't forget that I want to be better. I just don't want to race faster, because if you can race faster and become a worse person, that is a gigantic net loss, and that happens. It's frequent. It happens to a lot of people. What I don't think is a net loss is Memphis 70.3. I know that a lot of people are ribbing on it because, good luck with the crime and the city. And it's like, listen, like I've always kind of given Memphis a hard time. But Ironman does its homework, and I think it's got the possibility to be a really, really good race. I mean, anyway, if you're, have no idea, you live under a rock, they announced on Tuesday that they're doing Memphis 70.3. I think it's October 3rd. It's an early October date. It's an interesting date. It either shows me one of two things. It shows me Louisville is eventually going to go, because this weekend falls in between Ironman Chattanooga and Ironman Louisville. I don't think they're pulling from Redmond, but what I really think it actually is it's another opportunity at a very comfortable distance to do and to compete in as a 70.3. It's a great part. It'll pull from Texas, Louisiana, obviously Tennessee, obviously Mississippi, areas where there aren't a lot. I mean, hell, like you can drive 9 hours just across the state from Texas. And I think it's a great opportunity. I think it's a great time of year. It is early October, so if you live in the South, this isn't much of anybody. It could be 98 or it could be 68. You just don't know. And I think that I think it's a great opportunity. I think it's a great time of year. It gives people a lot of time to do it. And I think the location they've picked is pretty good from what I've read, and have some athletes that are in and around Memphis. Listen, anytime they give an opportunity, it's exciting. And I know today I think they're announcing another one that's going to be in the state of Washington, which is also interesting because they used to have one called Lake Stevens 70.3, which was discontinued, and now it's coming back. So either the sport is back on the upswing and people are growing, like we wanted to, and it's back on the uptick, and participation is increasing. I do like the fact that they're adding more 70.3 events, not fulls. The Des Moines 70.3 was announced last year, obviously of Ironman Tulsa, but I think it's a great thing. I don't have, this isn't going to be like some in-depth course review because I'm not sure if they've posted that yet. I saw the swim route, if you will, yesterday, and listen, man, like people are going to complain about everything, as you and I both know. It's a new race, it's a new opportunity, so be thankful. And everyone complains about everything sometimes, but listen, anytime you have an opportunity, especially if you're close by, it's awesome. I think it's great for the sport. We live in a state where there are 3 Ironman events: Ironman Chattanooga, Chattanooga 70.3, and then now Memphis 70.3. It's exciting. I think it's awesome. Again, it's another opportunity. I think it's great for the West Coasters as well, who are going to have that new race announced today. And listen, they went to the Midwest with Des Moines, and I think was Ironman Tulsa. It's good. It's all good, and it's more opportunities are always a great thing, especially when it's a distance like a 70.3, which is so attainable for everyone from a time management and volume standpoint. I think it's good. You might see me there.
Spectating?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I mean, you can't deny that. I mean, we have a huge. I think probably our number one city is Chicago. That's a really accessible race from Chicago too.
Is it?
Sort of. I mean, it's quite a lot. It's quite a drive. It's probably.
I was gonna say, it's like I'm not sure what map you're looking at, but
yeah, but I'm sure there'll be a lot of people that go down there. I mean, although Des Moines is a lot closer.
And Des Moines is a lot closer, dude. People love Memphis, man, or people love new races. And that's just, people love new races, and so I think it'll probably sell out, honestly. And for you geographical people, it's a 7.5 hour. Well, yeah, it's a 7.5 hour drive from Memphis to Chicago, so it ain't that close.
No. I always see the signs from. Yeah, I always forget that when I'm coming down Illinois, it says Memphis this way, and I'm like, oh, it must be right over there, but it's actually further to Memphis than it is Nashville when you get down.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's going to pull from St. Louis. It's going to pull from obviously the Nashville, Clarksville area. It's going to pull from Jackson, Mississippi, Arkansas. I mean, that's another place they went when
a lot
they were
of
looking at
triathletes in Jackson.
What? Like 7, I think. But the Bentonville, Arkansas, which is a race that the place they had looked at, or Fayetteville rather. So no, I think, listen, it's, hey, growth is good. Growth is good, and the athletes will be. We'll determine if this is going to be a successful race or not. But hey, 3-year contract. We'll see how it goes.
70.3s, man. That might be the ticket.
That's where I'm at. It's everyone's telling me, you know what? Probably just going to do some Olis next year. That's where I'm going to find myself. Going to do some Olis. As always, we appreciate you tuning in. If you haven't been or want to stop, you can go to crushingiron.com. It is the one-stop shop for all things Crushing Iron, gear, training, coaching, our camps, you name it. I will say, like, if you are on the camps for next year, our volume and intensity camp, which is late June, is sold out. The wait list is open. And then we have one spot left for the only other camp that we're doing next year, which is the early June camp, which is the technical camp. If you're on the fence, get on it, and don't wait in the minute because it'll probably be gone. But yeah, you can find that on crushingiron.com. If you have any questions about anything, comments, or concerns, you can email Mike. He's your guy. crushingiron@gmail.com. Or if you want to email me directly, you can always hit me up, c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, my man.
Hey, man. I hope you got some value out of this podcast.
Me?
Yeah.
Of course I did, man.
And above all else, I appreciate the long overdue 6-year thank you for your first Ironman. No problem. Thanks, man. I'll sleep better tonight.
All right, buddy. Bye-bye.